Truth be told as well, I didn't really get any offers, and not because I don't think anyone was interested. I just never put myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
My goal was to stay with Loud. You got someone like ASPAS, who's like probably one of the best Jets in the world. It's almost criminal to like not have him play that, you know. When you
Right.
have guys like SAADHAK and Les, who are like amazing flex type players, we don't do well in Tokyo. You have bullshit and fake rumors coming out from people like Slasher and stuff like that.
Tá cansado de cair com troll nas rankeds e quer jogar com pessoas que querem levar a sério e evoluir no jogo? E o melhor, a cada partida você vai acumular pontos para um ranking onde os melhores ganham premiações. É uma hub exclusiva para quem é assinante Neverest, onde você vai encontrar pessoas que querem levar o game a sério. Sendo assinante Neverest, além do acesso à hub, você vai encontrar muitos outros benefícios para evoluir no game. Use o cupom SMOKEMID15 para ter 15% de desconto na sua assinatura. O link vai estar aqui na descrição. Fala galera, tudo bem com vocês? O FROD, ex-coach da Loud e atual coach do MIBR, deu uma entrevista para o canal The Elevated Sports Experience e falou bastante sobre sua saída da Loud, sobre a entrada no MIBR e sobre esse ano de 2023 que teve com a Loud. Separamos alguns trechos aqui pra gente conferir, então já deixa aquele like nesse vídeo, confere se tá inscrito aqui no canal e vamos lá ver o trecho.
And then speaking of coaches, you went to MIBR this year. So you are now reunited with Bazooka, which obviously you first went to Brazil to join Loud for their Champions run when Bazooka was the head coach, and you were an analyst there, right? Or assistant coach, something like that.
Yeah, I was an analyst. I mean, I basically provided all the pistol rounds, the game plans, anti-strats, certain concepts of how to play against certain teams, how to beat certain teams, and how to prepare against some teams that are maybe more anti-strat focused, maybe how they like slow default too much. So just really kind of providing a lot of that like tactical depth that they really were missing out on. And like I was saying earlier, it's just really hard. Like you got someone like Bazooka who's just like flying with the team, traveling all over the world, playing tournaments nonstop, different opponents. Like you kind of need some of that help, and he was alone in that process. So just really providing that and giving a lot of extra stuff, and they ended up using and doing most of it, which was fantastic. I didn't even think that they would do everything. So for me, I was really excited to see that, you know, some of the work that I was doing without really even knowing the guys, they were having that faith in me, and it ended up paying off.
That relationship that you built with Bazooka during that analyst thing, obviously he saw probably quite a bit of value. The org saw a bunch of value for you, from you. They hired you for all of last season off of that. And we'll get to the Loud of last year in a little bit, but I did want to talk a little bit more about this offseason and Bazooka specifically. I would have to imagine that he's one of the main reasons that you wanted to stay in Brazil. I would have to imagine that you had quite a few offers from various teams all over the place this offseason, since a lot of teams were looking for coaches, and your results, I think at this point, for anybody who knows and really follows the scene, are pretty undeniable. So was kind of Bazooka a big factor for you wanting to go to MIBR and stay in Brazil and the Americas League?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, truth be told, me and him were potentially going to go to MIBR together last year. I just got the call from Loud. It's like, man, you know, I can't turn this opportunity down, right? So it kind of sucked to kind of have to part ways in that same way, but he totally understood, and it was a completely respectful thing. I would never have imagined like taking his position there, you know, but things happen. And he was very happy for me, and I had to take that opportunity. When it comes to this year, truth be told as well, I didn't really get any offers, and not because I don't think anyone was interested. I just never put myself out there. My goal was to stay with Loud. I think that our relationship was fantastic, and I was really hoping for that to be the case. When, you know, things started going a little bit south and kind of realized that it may not come to fruition, I had already, you know, spoken to Bazooka, and he let me know doors are wide open for you. So basically got the word that, you know, I wasn't going to be with Loud anymore. And within 24 hours, I pretty much agreed and signed with MIBR and started my negotiation process with them.
Cool. That's awesome. Also, I would have to imagine there's a little bit of, at this point for you, kind of excitement to like build a team that didn't do so well last year. And because I don't know, for me as a coach, I guess I would want a little bit of coming into a team that has like, you know, these superstar players, that has like this foundation, because it's like, oh, well, it's like getting the keys to a sports car to some extent. But there's also that like a lot of the, I guess, the accolades will go to the players. Oh, they're already good. You know, what is the coach actually doing? And now you have an opportunity to come into a team that had a pretty awful 2023 and really kind of be like, all right, you know, this is the impact that I can have when I have, you know, a group of sort of unproven players. It's not that these guys don't have names and didn't have, you know, some standout performances last year, but I think everybody would kind of agree that a lot of the MIBR players that you have to work with this year are not necessarily the ones that you would recognize from Brazil. So you kind of have this opportunity to like build this new team, I guess, in your image, or at least sort of like showcase the strengths that these different players have. Is that something that kind of like drives you this year of like, let's see what we can actually build from the ground up?
I think that it could really showcase the kind of value that I bring, especially to the public eye, which doesn't hurt for people to kind of see that. But I think the people that are around me that have worked with me, that kind of see my work, they understand that you know, I could add value wherever I'm at. And that just comes with the confidence and the hard work that I put in, because I really do work hard for the boys and make sure that I'm always trying to be there for them and creating new ideas, providing different ideas, things like that. So yeah, it's good, but you know, we're in a team game, so I'm not really looking for too much of those like personal type stuff. But in, you know, in some world, it does, you know, it does help that I can, you know, provide that sort of guidance to a team, because even if the public has, you know, some sort of perception about the boys, it is my job to prove those guys wrong. So
Right.
yeah, definitely want to do my part in making this team much better than they were, and I feel like we're on the right path for doing that.
Let's talk about the move to Loud, going in, becoming the head coach for 2023, and sort of having to do a little bit of rebuilding with that team. Obviously, Saucy and Pancata left to go to Sentinels, so you're left with SAADHAK, Les, ASPAS, and then two young guys, which were Tuiz and Kawanzin. So how was it kind of stepping into that head coaching role, knowing that you have to now develop some talent, but knowing that you have some pieces to build around as well? What was, I guess, like maybe the first thing that you focused on with that new group?
You know, where it came to the champion core of SAADHAK, Les, and ASPAS, it was more of fine tuning some of the things they needed to fix. When it came to the other guys, it was more like teaching them from the ground up some of these things, and especially for Tuiz, who was going from a duelist to a controller role. So it was quite a challenge, but I think that that's what helped us become like a really good team off the bat, is because we were just really focused on practicing and the development of each and every individual, as well as kind of creating some sort of identity as a team, where it was kind of by accident in a way how I was able to come up with some of these compositions that really ended up paying off for us. And it ended up working, especially with the, I think big factor was kind of like the approach I had on the compositions, which was mostly to make sure that my guys were set up in the best position they could be successful at. You know, who the hell knew that Harbor Viper Sky was going to be so dominant, but I knew it would be good for us because of the players we had and the kind of play style we had. So you know, I think it ended up paying off, and I think that's why you saw Loud have such a successful year with those kind of compositions, and some teams kind of struggling a little bit because maybe their team makeup didn't have the right players to play the right roles, where, you know, we did it for those reasons.
How important is it to be the meta leader in this game? And also, what is your view of the teams that seem to just kind of like do what the top teams are doing?
Yeah, it's huge. And I was actually just having a conversation with one of my guys about this. It's one thing to be the innovators, and it's one thing to be the guys that are kind of copying what other people are doing. The reason why it's so important is because we're the ones that create the concepts behind what we do.
Right.
Other teams just see maybe more like the physical. They look at radar, they look at like what the micro level of things are, and they're like, okay, you know, there's a wall here, like let's just go. They just don't know why the wall's there. They don't know why certain things are played in certain ways. So not only did we spend more time than anyone playing this, but we also understand the weaknesses and the strengths more than anyone, simply because we're the ones that created it. And for me, the one that was really leading the pace when it came to some of these compositions with the team, you know, I spent most of my time thinking about, like, the way that I like to work is backwards. I like to think about like the weaknesses before I like to think about the strengths, because you can always cover up the strengths or the weaknesses by how you play. But when you look at the weaknesses of things, you kind of could see like if this is good, if this has potential long term, and what could we do to kind of improve on these weaknesses? Because I've always felt like as a pro player, if we're like self-aware enough about what our weaknesses are, then we can kind of work on them and turn our weaknesses into strengths. And hopefully one day we become like an overall good team, overall good player when we work on those weaknesses, because our strengths should always be there because we kind of fine tune those things on a day to day. But if we work really hard on our weaknesses, and I think that that's something that's very huge. And I think that that's the thing that people don't really understand. And also, I didn't like just wake up one day and think about this kind of composition. A lot of it was catered to the kind of players that we had on the team. Some teams don't have the players that can play certain agents and understand certain roles. I was very blessed enough to have guys on Loud that are very flexible, but also guys that, like I said, this kind of composition worked perfectly. Guys like Gawang, he was an amazing Silva player, but I realized like this kid's got insane talent, insane aim. I don't want to force him to like be with abilities in his hand. I want him to just pop flash and go get kills, like kind of play like Sky, like the NA players do, which is like a quasi duelist. So I think a lot of it was birthed in putting the strengths to my players. And like I said, other teams don't understand the concepts as to the why we do the things we do, how we can continue to evolve them, and then also they may not have the player makeup to be able to make these things work. And these things take time. You need to understand certain things. You need to understand the weaknesses. Every time you lose a scrim or lose some sort of retake or whatever, you're like, okay, I maybe if I change this and I edit that. So it's like sometimes you got to take L's to be able to get those W's. And I think a lot of teams, they were taking those L's while they were playing us or while they were watching us live on stage, and we had been taking those L's in practice just to kind of fine tune it. So a lot of it really just came up from like on the day-to-day side of things. And we spent so much time evolving that composition that we knew that we were always going to be in the lead, simply because we had already gone through the fire on most of the things that we knew that were good and bad.
Sure.
And when we played against teams that were playing against the same thing, like we just exploited a lot of the weaknesses of it. And like I said, we knew those better than everyone else.
Yeah, you already know all the weaknesses, so you can really press them on those.
So it's all about creating your own identity and understanding who you have on board. And I think that that's the reason why teams like Loud and teams like Paper X were able to have so much success, because we didn't follow the pace when it came to anything. We just kind of did our own thing and was creating most, if not all, the compositions with the mindset of like, this is what works best for our team. You got someone like ASPAS, who's like probably one of the best jets in the world. It's almost criminal to like not have him play that. When you have guys like SAADHAK and Les, who are like amazing flex type players, it's like those guys can play Killjoy Viper and interchange no problem. Dweez was like the easiest one. He didn't even understand the role. So as he was learning how to play a controller, it was like, just learn to play controller.
That's why he
and
was
play
so
Harbor.
good at Harbor, is because he was totally new to the role and he just played it how he wanted to.
Yeah, you didn't have to like rewire anything. You just had to teach him from the ground up. So sometimes you have players that you have to rewire some understandings of the games. He hit like a full reset in his mind. He's like, I'm not playing the duelist side, putting that away. I'm going to be a controller now. It's like, just teach him from the ground up.
For sure. Awesome. That makes sense. So let's talk about Champions 2023, because I think it probably also helped you guys maybe where the expectations get dropped a little bit at that point, and you're just like another team in the mix. People are looking at the Fnatics and the EGs as maybe potential front runners for champs, and you're not on home soil, but kind of home soil since you're already playing in Americas. What was the Champions LA experience like for you?
It was definitely not home turf for us. I don't think there was a single match that people were cheering for us.
I sat with the Loud fans for a couple of your matches, and there's a tiny little pocket. It was fun.
Those 15 people were loud. But the couple hundred other people in the audience, they were definitely not on our side in any match, which is kind of sad. But because SAADHAK did mention that in some interview that, even though we are an America's team, it doesn't feel like we're getting support from America, but it is what it is. Like for us, we've, kind of felt good about that aspect. And, when we don't do well in Tokyo, you have bullshit and fake rumors coming out from people like Slasher and stuff like that. We were marked as a dead team and an underdog immediately, no matter what. So for us, we're like, all right, no problem. This is all fake. We understand how we are as a team. Let's just refocus on ourselves. The spotlight's going to be a little bit away from us. And that's only going to make us feel better about ourselves that, we're coming into this tournament which is obviously the culmination of our year, with like an underdog mentality rather than like the ones that are expected to win the whole damn thing. So I think that only really helped us out. And just even like the crowd being against us and different things, like it allowed us to just like do what we've been doing all year, which is keep ourselves in our own little bubble and forget about everything that's going on outside. So that really, I appreciate all the rumors and fake stuff that was going out there, because that really only strengthened us as a unit. So gave us a really good opportunity to come into a tournament stronger personally.
And then you go to the upper quarters, you beat Fnatic 2-0. I mean, what is it? And then you end up eliminating Fnatic in the lowers as well. I mean, potentially changing the course of history. Because if it was me looking at the game, I think that Fnatic probably had the leg up on EG out of any of the teams, like the top four. I think if we're talking like rock,
Fnatic
paper,
had
scissors,
their number
I'd say
kind of thing. Yeah.
Fnatic beats EG, you guys beat Fnatic, PaperX beats you. Like, what is it about Fnatic? Is it just that European style that you're like really good against that allows you to kind of be the only team that could really hand them a tough game all of last year?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, like bluntly put, we dominated them on a lot of those maps. Like,
Yeah.
It's not that we just beat them; we dominated them, and I think it was a culmination of like the anti-strat work and the study material that we were doing against them. I think we had an amazing read on everything they were doing. They were the kind of team that they kind of stuck to their guns. Like whatever that was working for them, they were going to stick to it.
Mhm.
They never lost a Lotus game, but we beat the crap out of them at lock-in on that
Right.
map. I think we lost both pistols and won like 13-7. So we were the only team in the world that had ever beat them on Lotus, and I think that they were not expecting us to kind of go in there, change stuff around, and do what we did and kind of show them. And we ended up beating them even worse in champs. And I think it was kind of our style of play, but also our read on what they did. That like the overall general region style of play that Europe kind of has, but also them. I think that like I said, we just had such a good read on what they do that I think that threw them off. Maybe they can say that they had a bad day, but I think as professionals, we all understand that it's not really about having an off day when it comes to skill set. We tactically dominated them, and I think they would agree on that. And the fact that we ended up performing the same way the second time around, that
Mhm.
kind of fortified that we were the better team. And regardless of how the ended up tournament, how the course of history changed, not only were we the better team, but we wanted to kind of take revenge for the fact that we lost lock-in the way that we did.
For sure.
So we had been dreaming of that revenge match for ever since February. So for us, it was like, give us Fnatic anywhere, anytime. And thank God it happened twice at champs, because we were ready for them for the whole year.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear. I wanted to ask a little bit about a couple specific players, and sort of your opinions on them and how they affect the game. So the first one is SAADHAK. I know you've just kind of like praised him endlessly for his flexibility and just his ability to lead a team and stuff like that. What is it like working with somebody who he's kind of like the elder statesman on the team with a bunch of young guys, and just seems to have like such a like carefree approach to just like being a pro, but also is like a killer in the server. So talk to me a little bit about SAADHAK as a player.
Yeah, SAADHAK is a great guy. I mean, everyone calls him the dad, and they call me the grandfather, so therefore he's my son. Like we are from the same cloth. Like we get along very well. Have a great relationship with him. I think one of the main things that I kind of told him early on is like, I really want to help extend your career, because I don't want him to retire or anything like that. So like, just throw all the work on my plate so I can help extend his career. So for me, I just really wanted to help him out, do everything I could to help him extend his career, like I said. And he's such a smart guy, and he also understands how to lead a team, be like a politician in that way, kind of like understand everyone and all that stuff. And he's also good at delegating those things. So with me, we work so well because he was able to give me that kind of direction. Like, I need new this, I need new that, I need new this. I was like, no problem, done. So I think that our working relationship was fantastic, especially because not only do we think about the game in the same way, kind of having like, but we balance each other out, right? Like, he would cook a lot, and I was also a little bit of a cook, but I kind of like bring him down to earth in some of these cases. So I think a lot of it came down to us being kind of that yin and yang, like different. I'm kind of a more intense personality. He's more of a chill personality. So we just balance each other out very well. SAADHAK is probably one of the coolest guys and just greatest minds I've ever met in the game. And I think that's why we work well together, because I feel like we share a lot of those qualities, and he was able to, have that respect for me to allow myself to be myself, and kind of just balance him out. And we would spend endless hours debating stuff, like talking about different points, whether it was good or bad. It was always out of respect and just pure like intelligence of us discuss our side and coming to some consensus to how we want to approach the game and approach the team. And I think it was just like a really, really good balance, especially because we both kind of operate the same way, but since we are so different in some ways, that really made us like really, really good complements to each other.
Makes sense. Okay, and then on the other side of the coin, we've got this interesting game where it kind of seems like these crazy young talents, like the ASPAS, like the Demon One, the somethings, these types of players have the ability to have like an almost like outsized impact on round to round, and like even in like the game changer scene, you've got like Fluorescent, this type of player who can just kind of like take over 5-6 rounds a half potentially and just win them for you. How do you feel about these types of players, and how do you feel about the game in general that allows this type of thing to happen with agents like Jet and Chamber in the past? And like I guess like what is your perspective on that type of thing?
It's all about the op, man. Like the op is such a dominant gun in CS and in Valorant and stuff like that. And with some of these guys, especially like ASPAS, who's the one that I was working with for a couple years, is like I was exactly who you were back in the day. Like I was an aggressive op that people were like, "What the hell is this guy doing? He's just running around no scoping people. What the f?" And like I understand exactly what it's like to be that 16, 17-year-old up and coming player that's showcasing your talent to the world and dominating rounds. So I think that we kind of share those qualities. So for me, we speak that same language, and I think that that's why me and ASPAS were able to work so well together, because it's not really hard for me to help him become better because he's already an insanely gifted player. Like this kid is brilliant. Like he gets into that flow state mindset and like just autopilot dominates. Like he's so good. And for me, it was more about like fine tuning some of these skill sets to let him know that you are the best in the world, but there's so much more that you can do, that you can be like the best player ever, and also having someone like ASPAS who does have an open mind, doesn't have an ego like that, and is willing to just like take on that advice. And I think that that's why me and ASPAS were able to have such a fantastic relationship, because my focus was on making him a better player, an even better player than he was.
I guess last thing I just want to ask is, what's in store for you this year? What are expectations for MIBR? And just kind of like, any sort of final thoughts on what's coming for you in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, our expectations are to win. I don't come into this with the mindset of like just being a competitor, just being part of the process. Obviously, we know it's a tough road. Obviously, we know we have a lot of things against us, but our goal is to win. Our goal is to qualify for tournaments internationally and to be very, very competitive. So that's kind of my mindset. That's what I'm bringing to the team. I'm very excited for this opportunity to be with MIBR. I think that the players are very talented. Bazooka's a very good coach, and he's going to be, he's the head coach, and I'm basically like a head coach alongside with him, in the sense like title doesn't matter. He's given me the ability to do whatever the hell I want at any moment, adjust the practice schedules, adjust our approach day to day, tactically, compositions, out of game, everything. So he's given me total freedom to do whatever I feel is necessary for the team to be successful. And that's what I love about him, because he understands who I am. We've known each other for a long time, and he brought me on board to let me do what I feel is best, not to really like kind of have it be his way. He's very adaptable as well. So I think that we make a really good team when it comes to the coaching staff, and I think that he put together a pretty good squad here as well. And I think that a lot of people are going to be kind of shocked at how we approach the game, and how some of these new players are kind of transitioning and playing. So, it's our goal to, let people know that we're a brand new team, and to make sure that we can qualify for some tournaments. So really excited for, like I said, the opportunity, but really excited to start getting the ability to compete at a kind of international stage, or even like the Americas or the kickoff tournament, because I feel like we're on the right path. And a lot of teams are going through different stuff. A lot of teams still don't even have their rosters figured out. I think for us, like, we've already figured out our roster. We've been boot camping, or about to be boot camping for almost a month. So I think that as long as we kind of keep this focus on our practice and our culture, I think that only success will come our way. And even if we fall short in some things, I feel like we'll feel like it's a success because we've given it all we had, or we've given it all we have. And that's something that I'm kind of demanding from the boys, which is basically just give me 100 and I'll give you 100. It's going to be like a really good year that we're working together.